So I want to start today by pointing at something that is probably haunting you right now.
Oh,
It might be on your nightstand, physically looming over you while you sleep. Or maybe it's a digital ghost like a row of 25 open tabs you haven't closed in weeks.
the stack.
The stack, exactly, the unread, the must-reads that have just, I don't know, curdled into this tower of guilt. We have this deep-seated modern anxiety that if we start something, we are just obligated to finish it.
Morally obligated, even.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that if you put a bookmark halfway through chapter 3 and never pick it up again, you've somehow failed. You wasted time. You missed the point.
It's a heavy weight to carry, isn't it? Walking through the world with all those unfinished sentences clinging to your back.
It feels like a debt, a literal cognitive debt.
Ugh.
But today, for this deep dive, we're going to explore a perspective that turns that anxiety completely on its head.
A good thing to do with anxiety.
We're diving into a philosophy rooted in Zen wisdom that suggests we might have this all wrong, that maybe the goal isn't to get to the last page at all.
Perhaps the goal is to realize that there is no last page. But before we get into the logic of it, I want to invite you to just stop looking at the stack.
Okay.
Shift the image in your mind completely. Let's move away from the nightstand. I want you to visualize a different scene. Imagine a wooden windowsill in the late afternoon.
Okay, I'm there.
The light is warm and slanting, low in the sky, and it's catching those little dust motes that float in the air like tiny, suspended stars.
Right.
It's very quiet. And on that sill, there is a book lying open.
Just sitting there.
Just sitting there. A breeze slips through the open window, just enough to lift the corner of a page, flutter it, and let it sigh back down. Now, here's the question. Where is the reader?
Well, in that image, it feels like they've left. They've abandoned the book.
Abandoned, that is such a harsh word. What if they're more present than ever? Not in body, but in the silence between the lines? What if the book isn't waiting to be finished? What if it's already done its work?
Done its work.
The deepest wisdom often isn't found in the conclusion, waiting for you at the end of the journey. It's found in the courage to close the book before you get there.
See, that is where my brain starts to fight back. I mean, it sounds poetic, sure, but it also sounds a bit like a convenient excuse for, laziness. Oh, I'm not quitting this difficult textbook. I'm practicing Zen. My brain just screams, but I don't know how it ends.
Where I paid $30 for this.
Exactly, the economic argument. We want a return on our investment. We want the data. We want the completion.
And that is the paradox. In our world, in this, information economy, unfinished is a flaw. It's a bug in the system.
Right, a bridge that stops halfway across a river is a bad bridge.
Precisely. But in Zen, incompleteness is not a flaw. It's a feature. It's an invitation.
An invitation to do what?
To step into the frame. To
Right.
participate. Think about a traditional Japanese ink painting a sumi. Have you noticed how the brushstroke often just fades out before it reaches the edge of the scroll?
Yeah, or how a mountain is just one jagged line and a lot of white space.
Exactly. It's deliberately unresolved. If the artist painted every single leaf on the tree, every crag on the mountain, the image is closed. It's a sealed object.
So you, the viewer, are just a consumer of a finished product.
There's no room for you. But if there's a gap, a missing piece, your mind has to enter the work to complete it. You become a co-creator.
So the incompleteness is actually a vacuum. It pulls you in.
Precisely. And by leaving the book unread or unfinished, we aren't failing to consume the data. We're creating space. We're creating ma.
Ma. I've heard this word used in architecture. It's usually translated as negative space, right?
It is, but negative is such a poor word in English. It implies a lack, like something is missing. Ma is not emptiness as a lack. It's emptiness as potential. It's an emptiness that's full of possibilities.
Give me a concrete example of that, because emptiness full of possibilities still sounds a bit abstract to me.
Okay, think of a door. A solid wall is useful for protection, but you can't pass through it. A door is only useful because of the empty space in the middle.
The doorway.
The value of the door is the ma. Or think of music. A shakuhachi flute melody.
Okay.
The music isn't just the notes. If I played a continuous, unending stream of sound, that isn't music. That's a siren. That's noise. The music is actually defined by the pause between the notes.
The silence shapes the sound.
Yes, that is ma. That's where the meaning breathes.
That makes perfect sense. Without the silence, everything just collapses into noise.
And does that not feel like a description of modern life?
A continuous wall of sound, yeah.
We read to finish. We read to possess the knowledge. We want that satisfying click of the final period so we can check the box and say, I know this. But without Ma, without that space, the teaching can't migrate from the page into your life.
Migrate into your life. I like that phrasing.
When you leave a book unread, when you stop halfway through and just look out the window, you create that margin. You create Ma, you leave room for the story to become part of your, let's say, inner weather.
So if you consume the whole thing, you've just, eaten the meal, it's digested, it's done.
Exactly. But if you stop, the story continues. It unfolds in your walk, in your work, in the quiet moments. You force your own mind to write the ending.
It's almost like that Zeigarnik effect in psychology. We remember unfinished tasks better than finished ones. But you're saying it's not just memory, it's integration.
Yes. You don't need to drain the ocean to know water. One drop on the tongue is enough to know the taste of the sea.
That's a beautiful line. But I have to play the skeptic again. Because sometimes stopping early isn't a profound choice. Sometimes it's just messy. It's giving up because it got hard, or I got bored, or a notification popped up.
The crucial friction point, isn't it? We fear the mess. We fear that if we don't finish, we're just being sloppy.
Right.
But there's a wonderful old story that addresses this exact fear. It's the story of the monk and the smudge.
The monk and the smudge. Sounds like a fable. Let's hear it.
So imagine a young monk, a scribe. He has spent years, literally years, copying sacred sutras by hand. And his goal is absolute, flawless completion.
I can relate to this monk. If I do it perfectly, I am worthy.
We all can. That's the trance of the ego. So he's working on the final scroll. It's the culmination of years of labor. The ink is wet. The lines are crisp. Then his master comes into the room.
Okay.
He watches the monk working this tight, anxious striving. And then the master dips his finger into the ink pot and deliberately draws a single, thick smudge right across the final page.
Oh no, I'd be furious. That's years of work ruined.
Ruined, or so it seemed. The monk was devastated. He asked why. The master said nothing. He just smiled and walked away.
That is some serious tough love.
It is. But years later, that monk looked back and said that the smudge was the first true teaching he ever received.
How? How was a ruined manuscript a teaching?
Because up until that moment, he was asleep. He was in a trance of doing. He was worshiping the product, the output, the perfection. The smudge woke him up.
It broke the spell.
It broke the loop. It taught him that perfection isn't the goal. Awake presence is the goal. And sometimes presence arrives as an interruption.
So the smudge wasn't an error. The smudge was the maw.
Exactly. It was the space where reality rushed in. We confuse completion with fulfillment. We think, I'll be fulfilled when I finish this project, or I'll be smart when I finish this book. But fulfillment arises when we stop grasping.
So the moment itself, even if it's messy or has a smudge on it, is already whole.
Already whole.
This brings up another aspect of this. Distraction. I mean, we fight it so hard. The phone buzzing, the noise outside. We try to block it out to get back to the text.
Yes, we treat the world as an enemy of our focus. Quiet down, universe. I am trying to become enlightened here.
Exactly.
But there's a different way to see it. Picture this. You're on the couch on a rainy day, reading a deep text about, say, impermanence. You get up to reheat your tea, and when you come back, the window is left open. A damp brown leaf has blown onto the open page.
Okay, my first instinct is brush the leaf away, dry the page, get annoyed that the paper is crinkled.
Right, you think this leaf is in the way of my reading, but the Zen insight is the leaf is the reading.
The leaf is the reading.
The book is no longer just paper and ink. It has become part of the weather, part of the season, part of you standing there with your warm tea. This isn't distraction, it's a dialogue. The universe is annotating the text for you.
That's a radical shift. So the environment isn't interrupting the flow of information, it's adding to it.
It's revealing that the information was never separate from the environment to begin with. Zen hides in the ordinary. In the steam from your cup, the sound of traffic, these are modern koans, whispered by life in the cracks of our plans.
Whispered by life in the cracks of our plans. That's beautiful. But it requires a certain surrender of the self, doesn't it?
It does. There's a famous saying, to study the self is to forget the self.
Unpack that for me in the context of reading, because usually when I read, I'm very focused on myself. I am learning. I am improving.
Exactly. That's remembering the self. You're building the ego. Look at me. Look how many books I've conquered. But to forget the self is to commune with the silence behind the words.
It's letting the leaf land on the page and realizing there's no separation.
No separation between the reader, the book, and the leaf. It's all one unfolding event.
It sounds like we need to change our whole metaphor for what reading even is, because for most of us, I think it's consumption. It's eating. I eat the book, I get the calories, the information, and move on.
And that's the capitalist trap, isn't it? We've internalized the logic of the factory. Value equals output. I've read 50 books this year.
I feel attacked. I literally have a reading goal tracker.
We all do. It's how we're conditioned. But try shifting the metaphor from consumption to, say, gardening.
Gardening?
Think about a garden. You don't finish a garden. You don't harvest every single flower the moment it blooms.
You don't strip it bare to prove you grew it.
No. You sit with it, you watch how the light changes the petals at dusk, you let some petals fall.
And you don't feel guilty that you didn't use that petal.
Exactly. There's a story about a woman reading in a park, deep in a novel. Then a stranger nearby starts playing a wooden flute.
Just spontaneously.
Spontaneously and softly. The woman closes the book, she closes her eyes, she listens for 10 minutes. The flute player stops, packs up, and leaves. And the woman stands up and walks away. She never opens the book again.
Okay.
Now tell me, did she fail?
The old me would say yes, absolutely. She never found out what happened. But in the context of gardening, no. She harvested the moment.
She completed something deeper, an act of deep listening. She realized that life is also a text, and sometimes it writes more clearly than any author.
Why stay buried in the description of the wind when the actual wind is blowing across your face?
There you go. And that reminds me of that concept of ichigo ichi.
Right. One time, one meeting.
Yes. A reminder that every encounter is unique and fleeting. The book you hold right now, today, will never be the same book again.
Because the text changes.
Because you change. The river of your mind is different. If you pick it up in 5 years, you're not picking up where you left off. You're a new person meeting the book for the first time.
That's actually really liberating. I'm not failing the book now. I'm just acknowledging that our meeting is over for today.
Yes. You don't need to finish it to meet it fully.
This all brings us to that famous idea people get wrong a lot. The sound of one hand clapping.
Ah, the classic Koran.
We think of it as a riddle, right? Like if I'm smart enough, I can figure out the answer.
That's the trap. We want to solve it. Google the answer. The teaching isn't in the answer. The teaching is in the frustration. It's in the moment your logic fails and you have to surrender control.
So how does that apply to my stack of unread books?
The book is just a finger pointing to the moon.
A finger pointing to the moon.
It's an ancient metaphor. The text, the words, they're just the finger. They're pointing at the truth, the moon. But if you stare at the finger,
you miss the moon.
You miss the moonlight on your own skin. If you obsess over the text, over finishing the chapter, you're staring at the finger. You're missing the reality it was trying to point you toward.
So stopping reading, leaving the page unturned, is basically looking up from the finger and actually seeing the moon.
Beautifully put. Think of your life as a river. A river doesn't ask, am I complete? Did I touch every rock?
No, it just flows.
Yeah.
It can't not flow.
And books are tributaries. They join your river for a mile, maybe just a moment. Their value isn't how long they stay, it's how they touch the current. A book you didn't finish might be finished by you living your life.
Finished by you living your life. That's the synthesis, isn't it?
It is. A sentence you read in the morning echoes in a conversation you have at lunch. The image from page 42 returns to you when you see snow falling that evening. That's the book being finished. It's circular, not linear.
It really does take the pressure off. It makes reading feel less like a job, less like homework, and more like a companion.
A companion. And sometimes companions part ways before the end of the road. And that's okay.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm thinking about that stack of books again. The Tower of Guilt. But it feels different now. Less like an accusation and more like, I don't know, a garden.
A garden. Or a waiting room of friends. You know, there's a concept of a sacred refusal.
A sacred refusal.
To close a book early is a sacred refusal of the culture of hustle. It's saying, I trust that what I have received is enough.
There's one last image I want to leave our listeners with. It's about a
Let the sky do the reading. Let the wind turn the pages. Stop trying to finish anything and just be.
Because you were never meant to consume the world.
No. You were meant to meet it. The book rests on the shelf, not waiting to be finished, but to be remembered as the place where you learn to stop reading and start living.
I think I'm going to go leave a book open on a windowsill right now. Thank you for this.
It was a pleasure.